Aloha, Kari. Were you able to get your video working?
No, I just totally restarted my computer and Zoom needed an update, so I did that, but it's still not talking to my camera. I'm so sorry.
Oh, rats.
Oh, no, I know, and the policy is that we're supposed to have our cameras on. I'm very aware of that. Shoot, what is it? 4:56 right now. Let me try again. I will leave and try and restart this one more time. Okay, sorry.
No worries.
Could you maybe try to use her cell phone?
I don't know that it's such a big deal for this meeting, right? For them to have their videos on. Because we're not, I mean, regardless if they have a quorum, right? Like
technically, we need to have a quorum of everybody a quorum with their cameras on to hold a meeting. If it turns out that a few people over and above the number for quorum don't have cameras, that's okay. We can live with those.
Well, I'll give this another try. Okay, bye.
And is that a quorum by each CDP? By area?
No, I think because it's joint, it would be a quorum for the entire, whatever a quorum for the entire group is. So if one C is a little bit short and another is overflowing, we could cover it that way.
Yeah.
So what's the aggregate number? What's the aggregate number?
That's a good question.
I don't see any action items on the agenda, so I'm not really sure that since we're not voting anything on anything, that a quorum issue will come up.
Beautiful. Drive safe. Okay.
It is actually a requirement to hold the meeting itself.
Okay.
Okay.
So do you take a total of everybody, all total, and then take a percentage of it? I mean, how do you arrive at the quorum?
Could she use her cell phone? Could she join the meeting with the audio portion and then FaceTime?
Good. So for our 4 seated action committees, there's a total of 36 seats. So is it safe to assume that 19 is quorum, Jean?
I have to admit, I am absolutely awful at math.
Yes, I mean,
what I would do is I would take the quorum for each one and add that number together.
Well, that's 1 over half of 36 is 18, so it's 1 over half. So if 51%, 51%.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ruth, for the math.
19.
Yes, and what we've done previously, because we have had meetings where there is not quorum, but we've just, because this is mostly presentation and not AC business or discussion, we've provided these like reports for after, and then the ACs discuss the reports as their way of reporting back to everyone else.
If I had several community members ask for something to be added to obviously couldn't be added to this agenda, but the next one, would that come during announcements? Or would that just be something we would bring up before the next meeting?
Yeah, if you have something specific for a Hamakua Action Committee meeting.
No, it's actually for the whole.
For the whole.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we don't really have that on the agenda tonight, but you could let us know at any point.
Okay.
What your ideas are. Yeah, and we'll definitely be reaching out as we get closer to that to folks, because we're hoping to make the next one like really engaging and exciting. I know you guys are already blown away by our backgrounds, but it's going to be even more exciting than that. Okay, so just for the folks who are coming in now, we are streaming live to YouTube already. We just want to know, we want the folks who are tuning in on YouTube to know that we are getting started and we're not, nothing's wrong with their connection or the viewing of that.
Folks in planning, on some of the participants' names, it says which CDP they're with, and other ones it doesn't. So like, are the people from Hawaii Recycle, Corey and Kristen? So they're not going to count as, are both of those from Recycle Hawaii? Christine? And Corey, are those?
Corey Harden is a community member joining us. Christine will be presenting.
Oh, okay. Corey is a community member. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. And so we're still working on getting everybody's renamed so that you guys can see kind of who. And if you don't like how we've renamed you, then please message us and we can fix it.
So Robert Golden is on the Puna CDP. Okay.
Robert Golden is a member of Puna, a community member in Puna.
Not a CDP member, not an action committee member.
No.
I'm just tracking quorum.
Yeah, so far I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14. $15 maybe. Sorry, gang. Okay, so as we're frantically trying to allow people in and still pretend like we're super organized, let's start with a grounding exercise. And I can't see you guys because we have this screensaver out. Maybe we can take the screensaver down already, Heather. Give everybody a little bit better view of each other. And so just very quickly, while we're trying to get organized here. Yeah,
Sorry.
No, perfect. So just really quickly, we know that we're all here because we have this deep pilina, or this deep connection to Hawaii, and a desire to make a positive difference for our people and for our aina. And so just as we're trying to settle in here, if you can type into the chat the moku or the ili or the area of the island that you are most pili or most connected to, and one word that describes something of abundance on Hawaii Island. So we want to start trying to flip the narrative of we are abundant.
Could you give that direction one more time, please?
Sure. Just adding into the chat, and people who are following on YouTube, please do the same thing. Add into the chat the area of the island that you are most connected to, and then a word that describes something of abundance on Hawaii Island.
I got a text from Heather Kimball, Councilmember
Yes.
Kimball, and she can't find her link and was wondering if you might send it to her again.
Oh yeah. Vai, I love it. Magic, community. Aloha. Ohia. There are an abundance of pa'a all over. Vai, love it. Awesome. Okay. Awesome.
Oh, I love this
Ooh,
so much.
I know.
Oh, cool.
All right. Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. So as you guys continue putting that into the chat, I'm just going to read through our boring little kind of paragraph that we always say at the beginning. So pursuant to the December 29, 2021 Governor's Proclamation related to the Sunshine Law and in-person meetings, the requirement to have at least one in-person meeting location has been suspended through February 28, 2022. So no in-person meeting location was provided for this meeting and will not be provided during this period unless the suspension is earlier terminated or suspended by a separate proclamation. So we'll be tracking that. Our Corporation Counsel, Jean Campbell, is helping us to track that. And so members of the public continue to have the option to watch the Joint Action Committee meeting live on the Planning Department's YouTube channel, or if interested in testifying or if prefer to, can attend by Zoom link. And so we just really appreciate your folks' patience as we continue to navigate through this ever-changing scenario around community meetings. And so your meeting and Zoom support team tonight is myself and Heather Bartlett, Jaslyn, Nathaniel, and Courtney Costa. And so you can see us by our backgrounds here. And so if you have any questions, any technical difficulties, anything like that, you can chat with us and we'll try to help you facilitate through those. And then very quickly, I'll turn it over to Heather so that she can kind of go over some friendly reminders.
Okie dokes, some more kind of boring stuff, but we have so many people here with us on Zoom. I feel like this is more than we've ever had. And I know there's others watching us on our live stream on YouTube. To make the most of our time together, we respectfully request that all participants observe these following ground rules. The first being to please remain muted and minimize distractions as to not take away from the person that's speaking. If you would like to speak, please use your raise hand function or raise your hand and wait for recognition from staff so we can give you the floor. Is everybody familiar with the raise hand function on Zoom? Or does anybody need help with that? If you do, please feel free to flag us in the chat and we can help you. I guess on that note, the Zoom chat function is not readily available for viewing by the public that are joining us on YouTube. And it may not be reflected in the official meeting minutes. Members of the public may use the chat function and their input is valued. We'll be taking any comments, questions, concerns, anything that we need to follow up on in the chat. Same goes for the YouTube comments. If anybody from the community is interested in testifying, please sign up to provide testimony. We also have the option of submitting written testimony if, to whatever comfort level that you function on and want to be engaged. So hopefully we can find ways to be inclusive, include everybody. If you're joining us from YouTube, leave a comment in the chat box area. Mahalo for being here. We really appreciate you guys. And thank you for following along on this kind of crazy collective project that we have going. We host our meeting information on our website. We also send out meeting reminders via email and have a mailing list. So if you're interested in joining our mailing list, please feel free to contact us and we can help you get that information. We're also available by phone. You can email us. You can find us in the planning department, usually in the Hilo office. And yeah, I think I covered it all. If anybody has any questions at any time, please feel free to put something in the chat and we'll be monitoring that. So I guess now, as we call this meeting to order, we'd like to invite Uncle Charlie, who's the chair of the Kona CDP Action Committee. to share in Olelo No'eau with us, which is a practice that they've started doing at the Kona Action Committee meetings.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Yeah, when I was elected chair, I just started something. I began every meeting with an Olelo No'eau. One to set the tone, the cultural tone for the work we were doing. One, I hope the Olelo No'eau was also inspirational to the folks who were serving, both in the state capacity, but also those who are giving of their own time, because the work you do is important. And also third, to sort of lay maybe a groundwork for how we should be conducting ourselves during these meetings, because I've been in some meetings that can be very acrimonious depending on the subject matter. So I just wanted to give you some background. Also, the Olelo No'eau comes from a Hawaiian mind. It is not Hawaiian translated into English. It's very difficult to sometimes grasp maybe what those meanings are unless your mind began as a Hawaiian one. And I won't propose to say that I was raised fully Hawaiian. But in the Olelo No'eaus, there's a lot of meanings that can be taken from them. And so I invite you to include your takes on it as well, and not just what the translation means or how I interpret it. So the Olelo No'eau today for me was Ke kanu mea ai a nana keiki i ka ha'i. And what it means is to plant edible foods, lest your children look with longing at someone else's. And I think right on the surface, you can tell what the meaning is. Hawaiians were, not only in the Olelo No'eaus are not just proverbs, they're not just sayings, it's the way they think and the way we behave are captured in some of these too. So one of my sort of interpretation today is to everybody on this call is that, today we're planting seeds. We're planting edible foods. We're planting something for the future. And while it may seem like it takes a long while for these to take, and the work can be very difficult in the beginning, it's a task I think that we all feel is worth it. So thank you.
Awesome. Mahalo, Uncle Charlie, for helping to ground us as we begin to settle in here. Super relevant. And I love that we had no idea what Olelo No'eau you were going to share. We never do. But somehow it's always related and always relative to the conversations that we have planned. So awesome. So before we get to our first presenter, we're just going to quickly run through roll call. And so I'm going to ask, this is going to take a little time, and we want to get through it as quickly as possible so that we can move on to the more exciting stuff. So I'm going to go by CDP area, and I'm just going to call your name, and if you can just unmute very quickly and say here, and then we'll move on. So I'm going to begin in Hamakua. Brad Kurokawa.
Here.
Carol Ignacio. Jeff McKnight.
Here.
Desiree Cruz. Nicolette Hubbard. Rhonda Pollard.
Here.
Crystal Kua.
Aloha.
Bob Nishimoto.
Here.
Tan Kini.
Here.
Mahalo. Moving on to Kona. Shane Palakat Nelson. Kari Kimura.
Here.
Franz Weber.
Present.
Some Shirley David is excused. Uncle Charlie Young.
Here.
Janice Palmaglenny. Marissa Bankston. David Huerta. And Roslyn Molina. Okay, Puna. Kanoi Wilson.
Yeah.
Leilani DiMello.
Here.
Leila Keloha.
Yo.
Susie Osborne.
Hey, yo.
Franny Brewer.
Present.
Awesome. And South Kohala, Tristy Likuan, Bill Sanborn,
Present.
Ruth Smith,
Here,
Mark Gordon, Julia Alos,
Present.
Kevin McLaughlin,
I'm here.
Scott Nagata,
Here.
Peter Hendricks, Karen Anderson. Okay, and we'll continue to monitor folks as they're coming in, and we'll mark people present as they enter the room. So let me just do a quick count. We're at 18. Quick, somebody phone a friend. But I think we can continue with presentations. We just can't have any back and forth kind of, and Jean, please correct me if I'm wrong. We can have presentations and information sharing, but we can't have any back and forth about potential business items.
We can take public testimony. We are allowed to do training, so no escape from your sunshine reminder this afternoon. And hopefully somebody will show up, because we shouldn't cover commission business and we can't have any discussion.
Okay. So it's a good thing then that we're starting with public comment. Okay, so let's see. You'll see dropped into the chat a link to the agenda in case you want that handy. And so let's see. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. So let's get into it. Many of you have already glanced at the Sunshine Law slides that were shared with you. You folks know there was an update coming. And so we're happy to have Deputy Corporation Counsel Jean Campbell here with us to walk us through the new Sunshine Law guidance based on those recent changes. And we, as we get the presentation up and running, Jean, let us know if you want us to present those or if you're comfortable sharing the slideshow. Just a reminder that the chat is not readily viewable by the public. And so the YouTube folks can see their own chat and the Zoom folks can see their own chat. But it is available and your input is valued, and we will be noting the items that are dropped into the chat, especially tracking on questions that we might need Jean to dive a little bit deeper into post-meeting.
Okay.
So.
Do you have the ability to share the summary of Sunshine Law PowerPoint thing? That would be super awesome. And then I won't share the wrong screen, which I've done in the past.
Give us 1 sec.
I believe it was called 2021 SL Summary PPT, that file.
Jean, I have a PDF here. It has 39 pages.
That's the
It's a
one.
summary. That's the one. Okay.
That's the one. And not to worry, we are not going to go in depth on every one of those 39 pages. Awesome. That is the one. Okay. And because I am not the most technologically adept person in the world, I have notes for myself, which I am going to move over onto my screen. So I'm still looking at you because my setup in my office is a little bit weird. So if we could save questions till the end of the presentation, I don't see the way that I have my computer set up. I don't see the chat. And so if somebody is raising their hand or asking a question in chat, I'm blissfully unaware of that. And I'm just going to blather on at you. So patience, let me blather on for a little bit. I'll try and make it brief, and then we can go through any questions if you can have the staff collect those in the chat or whatnot. So good afternoon, committee members. I am Jean Campbell, your Deputy Corporation Counsel, and thank you for allowing me some time this afternoon to provide you with a refresher and an update on the Sunshine Law. I expect that most of this is simply a reminder of things you already know about Sunshine, but it has been updated as of January 1st of this year, so there are some new elements to be familiar with. Currently, as mentioned at the beginning of our meeting, due to the recent COVID surge, some of these provisions, the new updates have been put on hold to reduce our risk of gathering together. The slides that we're looking at are ones that were created by the State Office of Information Practices, and they include a lot more information than we're going to cover today. But if you have questions, you are, as I mentioned, welcome to ask them at the end of the presentation. You're also welcome to reach out to me at any time, either through the staff or directly via email, or give me a call at the office. At any point, I am around for you. As noted in the slides, I think it's on the bottom of this first page, the OIP website is really, really handy. That's where this PowerPoint came from. It's oip.hawaii.gov, and I encourage you to take a look at their website. They've got some great training materials, a lot of other references. They are a super helpful resource. So if we could move on to page number 2. As you know, your work on the Action Committee is subject to the Sunshine Law. And the purpose of the Sunshine Law is to protect the public's right to know how government is functioning and to ensure that governmental processes are both open to public scrutiny and public participation. Some of these requirements may feel kind of overbearing for the work that the action committees do, but it's important to remember that the same Sunshine Law applies to basically all governmental functions with only a few exceptions. So the way to think about Sunshine, I think, is helpful to me, is I think about the agency that I think could most use a ray of sunshine, and then the law makes a lot more sense. So next slide, page 3. As noted, your work is also subject to the Uniform Information Practices Act, or UIPA, and that's our open records law. The UIPA is essentially the same purpose as the Sunshine Law, and it is to ensure that government work is conducted as transparently as possible. And this means that the records of the action committees are open and available to the public on request. Next slide, page 4. With these purposes in mind, we need to remember that when a question about the applicability of the law isn't clear, both laws' provisions should be liberally construed or interpreted in favor of open meetings and full disclosure of information, rather than in favor of closed meetings. Next slide, page 5. I'm sure you all already know the basic requirements of Sunshine. All committee business must be conducted at a meeting. The meeting must be open unless there's a specific provision in the law allowing for a closed meeting. Notice must be provided prior to meetings, which we do via the published agenda and board packets. The committee must accept offered public testimony, and minutes of the meeting must be kept. All of this currently happens for your committees, with much of the work being handled by the planning department staff. So thank you very much, our hardworking staff. Next slide, page 6. The first question that should be considered is, what is committee business? So committee business is all matters over which the committee has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power that are before you or reasonably anticipated to come before you in the foreseeable future. So these are the matters that you have to be very careful about discussing with each other outside of a meeting. Next slide, page 7. This next slide gives you a little bit more information about what constitutes committee business. And since you have a copy of these slides, I'm going to let you look at the details more closely on your own and follow up with questions if you have. So next slide, page 8. As committee members, you are allowed to interact outside of a meeting to discuss any non-committee business. So the weather, your families, whatever else interests you. You don't need to hide from one another. But remember that also interaction includes talking, texting, phone calls, emails. So all of those things are important when you're interacting with one another. Next slide, page 9. There are a number of permitted interactions, and these are, this is what's covered in the slide. So we're going to go over them in just a bit. So next slide, page 10. For committee business outside of a meeting, two of you can discuss committee business, but you can't do any horse trading or making a commitment to vote in a particular way or support a particular matter, that kind of thing. Also, serial communications aren't permitted. So in other words, you can't pass the same communication on among just two people and do it again and again and again. And so, as you're probably already aware, this is why all emails are sent to you from the planning department using blind copies, so we don't accidentally begin an out of meeting discussion by email. Next slide, page 11. The Sunshine Law does allow for properly formed permitted interaction groups to meet and conduct committee business outside of a regular meeting. These groups must consist of fewer members than the number constituting a quorum for the committee. They must be formed during a formal meeting. Forming involves appointing the members, defining the scope of the work that's going to be done by the group. Once the work is completed, the group will come back to the full committee and report on their activity, their progress, whatever it is that they've come up with. No action can be taken at that meeting. Any deliberation or decision-making regarding the report provided by the permitted interaction group must take place at a third meeting. So for these permitted interaction groups, we need 3 meetings: 1 to form the group, 1 to report, and 1 to discuss the report. So over 3 different meetings there. Okay, the next set of slides, the next batch of slides here addresses other types of permitted interactions, which I don't really think that your action committees are likely to encounter. So we're going to kind of breeze through these and you can review them more closely on your own. You are allowed to discuss the selection of your chair and vice chair outside of a meeting. So let's skip down to the page titled No Quorum on page 15. If you must cancel a noticed meeting due to lack of a quorum, the members who are present, and we kind of already touched on this earlier, can accept public testimony on the agenda items noticed for the canceled meeting, and this testimony must then be reported at the next regular meeting that can be held. And that's because we don't want to inconvenience members of the public who've taken the time to appear and want to provide their testimony. So the next few slides also still covering types of interactions, which I don't anticipate being big issues for you. So let's skip ahead to executive session on page 19. I don't expect that it happens all that often, but you are allowed to close a meeting for limited discussions in executive session. And the slides are going to describe for you matters that can be discussed in executive session and the required procedures for doing so. But typically they are used for legal discussions of privileged information with the committee's attorney. Again, I don't think it's going to be a big deal for you, so we're not going to go in detail on that. So let's jump down to page 21 that's titled Limited Meetings. There are also provisions for limited meetings. And again, I don't think it's real likely you're going to need to use these, so we're not going to go over it real closely. And also the bar to conduct a limited meeting is pretty high and difficult to meet. These are essentially when you meet in a closed meeting at a particular location that has a high level of danger for the public. And so that's why you can't invite them in as well. So let's skip on to page 23 about notice. As you know, public notice is required for your meetings, and the planning department staff takes care of this for you. And same thing with preparing the board packet. So again, thank you so much to our staff. As you know, you do need to follow your published agenda and not stray off to discuss matters that aren't on the agenda. And the reasoning behind this is that the public needs to know what the committee is going to do so they can decide if they're interested enough to show up for the meeting. If you discuss matters that aren't covered by your agenda, not only is it a violation of the Sunshine Law, but it also robs the public of the opportunity to meaningfully participate with you. So next slide, page 24. You're all familiar with your board packets that you receive prior to each meeting. And again, staff does a great job of preparing these for you. So let's jump down to page 26 about amending the agenda. It is legally possible to amend an agenda at a meeting, but we strongly discourage this. It's better to simply put everything you want to discuss on your agenda, and if something comes up at the last minute, add it to a future agenda. So next slide, page 27. The public may provide either written or oral testimony to you on any agenda items, and you are allowed to set reasonable limits on the submission of testimony, such as a time limit on oral testimony at a meeting for efficiency's sake. Next slide, page 28. As you know, your committee must keep minutes, and the staff does this for you. Next slide, page 29. So as you now know, due to the COVID pandemic and distancing requirements, the committees have been permitted to meet remotely for quite some time now. The new changes to the Sunshine Law that went into effect as of January 1st address how we conduct our remote meetings Although, as I noted earlier, some of these have been temporarily suspended at the moment, through the end of February, and we'll wait and see whether that gets lifted earlier or continues. So going forward, remote meetings are still permitted so long as the technology used, so in our case, Zoom, allows for both audio and visual interactions between committee members and the public. During the meeting, at least a full quorum of the members must have their cameras on and be visible. At the start of the meeting, the chair is going to announce the names of all the participating committee members, as we just did. If you are participating remotely, you don't need to actually tell us where you are, but you do need to announce if there's anyone with you in your location, even if they aren't visible and they aren't participating in the meeting. So as an example, if I were a commissioner and I was participating from home, I might need to announce that my husband is there with me in my home if he's at home. And the idea behind this is to eliminate issues when members are having side conversations with somebody off camera and your microphone is on. It's sort of an appearance thing. So you're not, it just looks weird if you're talking to somebody off camera. And we also want to know that you're paying attention. So next slide, page 30. Another update is that all votes during a remote meeting must be conducted as roll call votes unless they're going to be unanimous. And since we don't necessarily know the outcome of a vote before it's taken, our recommendation is that all votes be roll call votes, except for usually the obvious things like adoption of your minutes and votes to adjourn the meeting, which are most likely to be unanimous. So meetings are going to be recorded, which the staff handles for you, and the recordings must be available to the public as soon as practicable until the written minutes are going to be posted on the website. Next slide, page 31. Once the suspension of the in-person requirement is lifted, again, probably end of February, we're not sure, the Sunshine Law requires that if a meeting is held remotely, an in-person location must be provided with an internet connection that's going to allow the public to participate. Next slide, page 32. There are a bunch of requirements for how to conduct your meeting if that connection is lost and unable to be reconnected within a half hour. Since we expect that most of the time the public location that will be provided is going to be at a county building, hopefully loss of connection won't be a big issue, but we do want you to know that there may be circumstances that are going to require the meeting to be terminated if that connection is lost. So let's jump ahead to page 35, which is telling us about another one of our meeting options, which is multi-site meetings. Other options, in addition to our remote meetings, for meetings are going to be the usual in-person meeting. One of these days we will all be able to get back together. And then also what are called now multi-site meetings. So a multi-site meeting is not actually considered remote in that everyone's participating from one of the available sites and no one is participating from home or another private location. So an example of a multi-site meeting, again, probably not super applicable to you guys given your geographic divisions, but maybe if we were doing when we're doing a joint meeting, a multi-site meeting might be one where some members are at the West Hawaii Civic Center and others are at the county building in Hilo, and everybody is connected by audio. Next slide, page 36. There are also connectivity requirements for multi-site meetings, and the staff will be handling all of that for us. Next slide, page 37. The last type of meeting going forward is an emergency meeting, and I don't think it's likely that you're going to need to take advantage of these, so we're kind of going to skip over that one too. So I think that should take us just about to the end of our slides. So the highlights to remember are: we can continue to meet remotely so long as the current excuse me, it's been a long day. We can continue to meet remotely, and so long as the current proclamation is in place, we don't need to provide that physical location, but that is going to change in the future. There are connectivity requirements, which could result in canceled meetings, but we hope not. And while you're participating in a meeting remotely, so from your own private location, whether it's home or your office or sitting in your car, whatever it is, your camera needs to be on and you need to tell us who's with you, and then all votes should be roll call votes. So that is it for my terribly exciting presentation. And again, OIP website is there. Take a look at it. They have great stuff. And that's everything I have. So we can stop sharing the slides, and if anybody has questions, I'm here to answer some, or if you think of them later, you're welcome to send them anytime. Ton.
Yes, last meeting I had asked if there was any restrictions in sunshine law in regards to my communicating with the members of the other action committees on any subject whatsoever. And I just wanted to clarify that my interpretation of your answer was that no, there is no restriction on that.
So long as, and I guess I'm going to clarify that just a bit, so long as you're talking about things that are not on the Hamakua agenda, so things that are on the Hamakua agenda, you need to be careful with the Hamakua AC members. If you are talking to the rest of the group, no problem, unless, and because I'm a lawyer, I'm always going to qualify something, unless it's something on a joint agenda. So when you're looking at joint agenda items, then you're going to consider the whole group. Otherwise, Hamakua agenda items limited to Hamakua. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Does anybody else have a quick question? Uncle Charlie?
Yeah, I guess I should declare my wife is here, my daughter is here, my two more opuna are here. And I mean, yeah, you made me feel guilty. I did have a question though, on amending the agenda. I know that you're talking more about adding or deleting something, but we can move items around. That's a 2/3 vote as well.
Yes, you can keep things within. So if you want to like move your first item to item number 3, because that isn't, it's somebody's not ready yet and you want to move things around, no problem. And yes, but so the difficulty is mostly really adding things to your agenda. You can postpone things a lot easier. Again, the way to think about it is what we're looking to do is make sure that the public knows what the committee is up to. And so they have had adequate notice to decide whether they want to show up and participate. So, Crystal.
On the remote meeting slide, so I thought it was interesting where you mentioned that there could be a possibility where some of the emergency measures might be lifted at the end of February. My question is a logistical one. How far in advance, and maybe this is more for the planning department, but how far in advance and will we get notice so we can, we can travel to wherever we need to travel for those meetings? I mean, so we have, right now it's pretty convenient, right? Where we can, just log on from home or office and stuff. But I'm just wondering, are there any plans yet for that? And how far in advance will we get notice that those things are changing?
Right now, the governor's proclamation has put that in-person piece of the new sunshine law on hold through the end of February. And that is, that could either be lifted earlier if our COVID numbers come down significantly and people feel safe, or it could be extended. Right now, we don't know. I'm not sure we'll know about that suspension probably until the end of February or something, if something changes earlier. You're permitted to continue having remote meetings even after that suspension is lifted. And then we just need to make sure that we follow all the requirements, including allowing that in-person location. And so the way that might work is, I'm gonna pick on let's see, the Kona folks. So if the Kona AC is having a meeting, they might, the Kona AC members want to do it as a remote meeting, the county staff would need to allow for or prepare a space probably at the West Hawaii Civic Center that would have an internet connection so the public could show up there and provide testimony and interact that way. So you can continue to be remote. It's once the suspension is lifted, it doesn't mean you can't be remote any longer. It just means you need to allow for that in-person thing. And then again, it's at that point, it's up to you folks to decide how you want to continue.
And by the way, I wanted to disclose that my husband, he's not in the room with me, he's just in the house. So in case you just heard him sneeze. Mahalo.
Ton.
Yes, in reading over the planning department's synopsis of the Sunshine Law and various comments, one of the examples they use is that it is permitted that members of the committees would discuss among themselves issues to be recommended to be placed on the agenda. I just wanted to clarify that that is the case.
I guess I don't quite.
Well, in other words, if I wanted to email all of the members of the Hamakua committee discussing whether we should put a particular item on the agenda, since we do not have any control or won't be voting, since that's entirely up to the chair of the committee, that it is okay for us to do that.
That would be something that you shouldn't do outside of a meeting, because that would be having a communication amongst everyone outside a meeting. So I think the best way to handle things on your agenda is, I think, and I apologize, I don't have your agenda open in front of me. I think typically towards the end of a meeting, there is a little section where everyone can suggest things that they'd like on a future agenda. That would be the time to bring that up. Otherwise, email the staff directly. And yeah, and dogs don't count in your disclosures, even though they count a lot in our lives.
Thank you.
And we love seeing them pop up on the screen. And Tan, we'll continue to do our typical kind of outreach to AC members at least 3 weeks before the agenda is drafted to see if anybody's had new thoughts or ideas around the agenda items. So that's a practice we're going to continue as well. Okay, so I'm going to ask, just as we are looking at the time here, if there are any additional questions, or if you think of something post-meeting, you're like, oh, I should have asked this, you'll have opportunity to do that through the feedback form, or you can always email us, call, what have you. And then we'll put together everybody's questions and make sure we get that back to you guys. Okay, thank you so much, Jean. Really appreciate it.
Have a great meeting, guys.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll move on to public comment. And so we received a few requests for public comment for tonight. And as you folks are all familiar, I think even most of our members of community have participated before. We are limited to 3 minutes in length per agenda item. And because we have such a tight schedule this evening, we're gonna really try to stick to that 3 minutes. I know sometimes we stray. And so due to the way that Zoom functions, there's no way for us to notify you politely that your 3 minutes is up. And so the only way for us to really do that is for me to like unmute and interrupt you, which is already causing me some head trauma and stress, because it feels extremely rude to me to have to interrupt you guys. And so I'm just gonna say that instead of thinking about it as being rude, let's just think about it as trying to honor our testifiers' time and everybody else who's on the meeting, and honor their time as well. We'll try to figure out a nicer way to do that if we can. And so we're gonna call commenters in the order that they've registered. And so first tonight we have Corey Hardin here representing herself, commenting on the planning director's message. Corey, you can go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, good evening, committee members. Thanks for your service.
Can you speak a little bit louder? Sorry, Corey.
Corey Hardin, community member, and this will relate to the planning director message and agenda item 3, the roadmap. And I'm concerned about recurring events where the voices of the community seem to be somewhat sidelined. The North Kohala Action Committee fell apart a couple of years ago, apparently because of, this is a quote from the Kohala Mountain News, tight rules that made it impossible to respond to issues in a timely manner and to allow discussion of issues not on the agenda. They had a meeting also once a month, and that went to only every 3 months. So that action committee reorganized as an advisory group, and they're going to be continuing the work under less restrictive rules. Another event was a while ago. You may remember there were long delays in filling vacancies on the action committees and also Kailua Village Design Commission. And there was a public outcry, and then that got somewhat straightened out. Also, this committee was told meetings could only be held every 3 months, and each proposal had to be heard at 3 meetings. So you'd end up with 9 months to pass anything. And recently, planning staff declined to put an item on the agenda for this committee that was for a housing development for 100 acres of ag land, ag zoned, and the development did not have to follow zoning regulations since half of the units were considered affordable. It seems that the action committee should be at least be allowed to discuss this. And now there's a proposal to change the action committees from place-based to issue-based. So instead of committees for Hamakua, Kona, so forth, there would be committees for environment, health, and other island-wide issues. My uneducated guess would be that place-based approach is better. On that, you can kind of look to Native Hawaiian culture, where the management of resources was place-based, and they obviously had great success for a long time. And my last concern is the planning department did a draft update to the general plan, but it's formatted very differently from the previous plan, and it's extremely hard to see where the changes happened. So I hope in the future there'll be some changes so voices of the community are listened to. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Corey. Appreciate you making the time to come tonight. Next up, we have Ruth Smith representing herself, also providing public comment on the planning director's message.
Get myself on.
There you go.
Am I on?
Yep.
Okay. Hang on. Okay, let me just make this bigger. All right. So, first of all, Dr. Kern, I'm going to be speaking to you about this. I want to thank you for joining the action committees of the Big Island today. We appreciate you very much. We appreciate your time, your knowledge, and your passion for the well-being of our communities now and in the future. And sincerely appreciate your being here. Briefly, these are my thoughts and hopes for all the action committees regarding the substantial federal funding of $1 trillion from the infrastructure bill that was passed by the bipartisan support of in the last congressional session and signed into law by President Biden. The state of Hawaii is receiving $2.8 billion in the allocation among the 50 states. As you well know, this is an unprecedented influx of funds for long delayed infrastructure repairs of roads and bridges, plus traffic infrastructure needs in areas of population growth. And it will be a very long time before we see this kind of investment again. And that's why it's so important to take right action now. The funds will be transferred from the state to the county of Hawaii. I haven't heard the amount of money that we're expecting to get on the Big Island. And if you know something about that, if you could and are able to share it, would appreciate you giving us that information at the end of my testimony. In the county of Hawaii, the distribution of funds will ultimately come down to Mayor Ross' decision on which communities and products get what and where. This is the process where I'm asking you, Director, to advocate on behalf of the priorities that are well established in each of our areas' community development plans regarding infrastructure and emergency preparedness needs. In Puna, Kau, Hamakua, Kona, North Kohala, and South Kohala, local communities worked diligently to research what actions were fundamentally necessary for a successful future in our communities. And we use that to craft the community development plans that best prioritize the needs and the desires of our people, all our people, for the future. The sheer volume of work by so many volunteers in each of our committees, each of our communities, was substantial, and our decisions that came out in our final CDPs were well vetted.
Sorry, Ruth, if you can just finish your thought.
Okay, I am asking that Mayor Roth represent the works that have already been done and the priorities that have been established while making his decisions on the distribution of funds on the Big Island. Please emphasize the importance of starting with the CDP's infrastructure and emergency priority lists, which often go hand in hand, is the structural foundation for projects to fund. The lengthy mayoral review and delay of the final county general plan, now over 8 years overdue, concerns me, as do the negative public statements made by the mayor about the CDPs. He needs to honor the very democratic processes that we went through to develop the CDPs and respect the wills of the people. And we ask you to advocate for us on that behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Okay, our last testifier tonight is Meju Louis. When you're ready,
Yes.
you can unmute and begin.
Okay, well, thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry. I forgot to say that you were representing yourself and that you were providing public comment on business item 1. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, I totally agree with everything that both Corey and Ruth said, so I'm glad to go last, so I won't have to say what they said again, except to really reinforce the importance of the CDPs and how much work went into them. And it's just a fantastic example of democratic citizen participation. We should be really proud of it. And we hope that this administration will honor it, and it does have the force of law. I was going to say that in terms of the sunshine laws, they really mean nothing if there are no meetings. And so, echoing Corey's concern, if these meetings only happen every 3 months, we're never going to get anywhere. And to echo Ruth's comments, this is a unique moment, not just in terms of the federal funding that's available, but because of the pandemic. We have an opportunity. Everything has changed, and we have a real opportunity to make change now. Everybody's used to having things thrown up in the air. So what better time could there be than to really get the implementation of the CDPs going? That's what we've all been waiting for. That's what we worked so hard for. And each area, each district is different. So I support place-based meetings, and perhaps there could be, island-wide committees on, say, agriculture or affordable housing that could come together, but we should keep things place-based, since, the needs of Hamakua are so different than the needs of Hilo, for example, or Kohala. And the last thing was around the 201H. 201H should not be allowed to be used by developers to bypass zoning laws. We saw an example of someone who wanted to turn agricultural land into smaller plots and put housing on all of them. That's totally unacceptable. That is against what the community wanted in the CDP. And yes, we want affordable housing, but not at that cost. We in Hamakua really want to maintain it as agricultural. If the meetings are so few and far between, we're afraid too that things could get snuck in. We were just lucky that our county councilor at the time, Valerie Poindexter, alerted some folks to what was going on, but otherwise it might have snuck in. And we don't want to see that happen. We don't want to have to fight afterwards. So we do appreciate Director Kern. You spoke with us once before, and your willingness to keep your door open and to hear us. That's great. But we need an open and transparent process that is beyond the sunshine laws. It's really like having meetings, letting us talk and listening to the voices, especially those already encapsulated in the CDPs. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you who came out to share your thoughts with us today. And so I'll just ask very quickly if there is anyone else who did not sign up to testify but feels pulled to do so now. You have 3 seconds to declare. Just kidding. Okay, so hearing that we have no other testifiers, we'd like to invite a message from our planning director, Zendel Kern. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us this evening. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Keiko. Excuse me. Aloha, everybody. Zendo Kern, Planning Director. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to say Happy New Year to you all. Really want to appreciate your continued service, coming together and being diligent and persistent. That persistence, as most of you know, pays off. Keep pushing, keep communicating, and we'll keep listening and doing the best that we can do to respond and serve our community to the best of our ability. I'd like to say that we've had about a little over a year under our belt now with this administration, and I want to say that I'm very proud of our department. It's kind of like there's a saying that only a surfer knows the feeling, and when you get in this department and see the volume and the load, it's kind of like only if you've been in here do you really know the feeling. Not making any excuses. I'm just saying that we have a tremendous team. Works really, really hard to serve our community. And no matter how hard we work, I still feel like it comes up short. And that's something that I personally deal with. No matter how much we do, no matter how many hours we put in, it's still not enough. But that being said, we push forward and keep doing our very best to serve and be here and make improvements. So it's just a real pleasure to be here and be able to give you folks an update. And again, it means a lot for you folks to be here and serving. So, Mayor Roth has the priority of sustainability, which is really big, right? And that's very full circle from environmental, to cultural, to economic equity. And so we as the planning department are looking at where we come into this, and we come in many, many different ways. So there's a concept called Kaizen that's from Japanese culture, and that's continuous constant improvement. So I'm going to give you a quick update on where we're at with things, what we're moving for. And I have 2 categories. One is my kind of Kaizen approach of our consistent, our ongoing. We worked on it last year, done really, really well. We'll continue to work on it this year. We'll continue to work on it next year. And I hope that continue to work on it in perpetuity, because it's always ongoing. And those are to continue to improve our communication, both internally and externally. Communication is so key. It's where a lot of challenges come, or miscommunication or missed opportunities come up. So, I'm hearing that from you folks. We need to communicate. We need to have things on the table and have an open forum. So it's something that we're working on, and it's something that comes up short quite frequently, even with the best of our intentions. So trying to set up systems and protocols to improve that communication, as well as lean into the challenging things. Oftentimes challenges come up, hard questions or things that didn't go quite right. And the natural instinct is to try to move away from it. And I don't want to do that, deflect. And what we've been really working on is not that, it's going the other way of leaning into it. Okay, we made a mistake. Where are we going to fix that? How can I make those adjustments? We apologize for that. We acknowledge that. That's the approach that we're trying to take, planning department and with this administration. And I believe it's a bit different, and doesn't mean it fixes everything, but we're here and trying to understand that. Continue to improve our customer service and responsiveness. Again, constant and going, always lots coming in, and always just trying to, again, serve our community the best that we possibly can. Continue to streamline our processes to make things smoother, to allow for additional bandwidth. We're running out of space, we're running out of bandwidth. There's a lot that's constantly coming in and more demand, and our resources are limited. So as we improve these systems and processes, we increase that bandwidth. We've seen this with the launch of the EPIC system. That's certainly improved things. I know there's a lot of talk out there around the EPIC system, some good, some bad. For the planning department, it's actually been a really good thing, and we're not having a lot of issues that some of the other departments having as far as processing the permits. We've seen it allow us to be more flexible in certain areas, especially during this time of COVID, where somebody might have had a close contact. If they're able to work from home and still process things. So it's really streamlined that process. So again, consistency in that area. Continue to process, permits and applications in a timely manner and in a responsible manner. That's something that we're working on within our divisions to continue to do. Continue to improve consistency amongst our staff and our divisions. Again, that's a communication area, and with new folks coming in, just having those consistencies. We have a West Hawaii division, we have a lot of folks, a lot of things going on. So it's really easy to miss a consistency area, to miss a communication. So it's constantly just working on that. So we're all speaking the same language, providing the community with the most accurate information, regardless of who you speak to. And that's, again, a constant improvement. And obviously, this is really important, is to continue to serve you folks. It's really important. You folks are engaged in our community. We learn a lot. There's a lot moving, a lot going on, and a lot that you folks bring to us, and the CDPs are here so we can uplift and work on and continue to really make them actionable, continue to fill the positions, and continue to work with you folks to improve the processes. We've reached out, we're trying to collect feedback so we have a good understanding, and so we can, make adjustments that the team, and when I say the team, that's the ACs collectively with the planning department, can agree on to move forward in the most effective manner. So those are some of the constant Kaizen approaches that we're going to consistently be working on. That doesn't mean that those areas are ultimately lacking. That just means I want to continue to always grow and improve. It's something very important. Some of our more project goals, our list of things it's really, really, really long. So I'm not going to get into all the minor little details like shoreline setback projects we're working on stuff, but we're going to talk about some of the higher level elements that we're working on. So what we're working on is this year is to really complete what I'm calling EPIC 1.5 and 2.0. We're doing some rebuilds on the back end, some systems work, changing some of the workflows, changing some of the intelligence on the back end that will, again, allows for consistency, good communication, tracking, and really getting it so we can be as digital as possible. I mean, right now we've taken out, we don't allow for paper submittals anymore. The amount of paper that we have saved is tremendous. A simple rezoning or special permit application could be up to 400 pages sometimes. That doesn't happen anymore. They're uploaded, they're digital. Somebody can do that from their home. That also saves them from having to drive in. That reduces the carbon footprint. So we're really working in that area to digitize. We have a lot of files that we need to get scanned in and digitized. And our goal is that you'd basically be able to access most of all our files via online. That will not all happen this year, no way, but it's something that we're working towards. And I think it'll be very good for folks to be able to access that, and again, add to another level of transparency, but also moving towards what we really need to be, and this is sustainable. If you don't need to drive, don't drive, look it up. You can, upload your applications right there online. And the 2.0 component is really trying to make things a bit more intelligent. So again, we can reduce some of our bandwidth challenges, and we're seeing a positive improvement on that. That has been a really big effort of this last year. And I'm going to talk about the general plan for a moment, and really needed to kind of get things squared away with some of these processes and get this up and running so we can then move on to these next priorities. And we're stabilized. So this is ongoing, but it's no longer this really, really massive priority that we were working through last year. We're working together jointly with research and development for a climate action plan for our county. That climate action plan will be basically a living document. It'll be attached to the general plan. With the general plan, you don't constantly amend it all the time. So we want to have the climate action plan attached to it. That's a little bit easier to amend and change as things change. We're in a learning space, and we're in a space where things are happening really, really quickly when it comes to climate change, technology, innovation. So we want to be able to have that plan be nimble enough and dynamic to change as we go and effectuate those policies. So that's something really exciting we're working on. The general plan, we are back to being full throttle on the update. We've sat down with our team. I have 2 Lead for Hawaii fellows working directly on it with other team members within the planning department. We've gone over the timelines and have all the data, and we're looking at just kind of doing a general overview, looking at it, doing some adjustments for it, and then we'll be going back and getting feedback from the community, feedback from the stakeholders, and working through that. It won't be done this year. We did the time frame. It is a process that it has to go through. And even if I started at the beginning of last year, which wouldn't have been the exact right timing, we wouldn't be done this year. So it's still going to be a process, but we want to make sure that it's done right. This is a 20-year plan, and so really trying to embed, sustainability, climate change in there, resilience, and really folding in the concepts of the CDPs in there as well. So we're really excited about that, and it is that priority. I said at the beginning of last year that we would have the EPIC system or the InterGov system up and running, and we did, and we worked through those challenges. And I'm saying the same thing. We will have the general plan update done, and we will push forward. We will not stop until it is done. You have my commitment for that, and we'll have feedback and communication and all of that good stuff. So this is just the beginning of that dialogue with this administration. Moving forward, we're also going to be doing a comprehensive update to both our subdivision code and our zoning codes. Our subdivision code is from 1983. It's certainly had some amendments, but no comprehensive. Our zoning code is from 1996 with some updates, but nothing comprehensive. So we want to look at those and really do a comprehensive overhaul on those to make sure that they're serving our community to the best of our ability, as well as being adjusting for the world that we live in now with climate change, with resilience components. And I'm not sure if you folks know, but I mean, cement and steel alone make up for 10% of our carbon emissions. And we use a lot of cement and steel. So how do we bring in more green infrastructure? How do we bring in more of a dynamic and continue to have, our TOD nodes? We're working on TOD projects, et cetera. So that's something that we'll be kicking off this year concurrently with the general plan update, really just trying to get that framework and do some auditing in there and working that out. So again, we'll have a lot of public participation in that. We'll be able to get a lot of input, but that ultimately over the next couple of years will bring from planning's perspective, our primary codes and the general plan up into a 2022 level that should go way beyond that and be sustainable moving forward. We work collectively with the Office of Housing, Department of Public Works, Environmental Management, et cetera, Department of Water Supply on affordable housing. As you know, housing is a really, really big deal right now. We're in a housing crisis. And so working with them to help solve for this, to really be able to work on infrastructure and bring in the infrastructure into the areas that make the most sense, and try to really collectively work together to solve for this. Because at the end of the day, it's going to take that collective to work through this. Again, infrastructure. We know where the projects are supposed to go. The CDPs define that. We know that. It's getting the infrastructure and getting it so we can actually have cost effectiveness within that, which also ties back to some of our codes to make sure that those are cost effective. And more here. And then also, the 2018 Kilauea eruption recovery is under the planning department. That is a really big priority for us. Folks have been in need out there for a long time and working diligently on the buyout program. So our goal is to really get through most of the buyout program this year, working on infrastructure improvements, getting through FEMA. We need to get the FEMA approvals, and I'd like to be ready to break ground and get some of this infrastructure that people have been waiting a very long time for and have been patient and just can't do it fast enough. And support our resilient capacity areas. We have some co-chairs here on this meeting. Continue to work on these areas to make the community strong and also be able to help build that model through this that we can then model in other areas on our island and in our community. So we're getting a multiplier effect in that regard. regarding the Build Back Better Funds program. I have met with Congressman Kaikahele. We met with Senator Schatz's team, and we're trying to really get a gauge and understand of how much funding, how, you know, or not how much, but how it's coming in exactly. He's talking with the DOT. And so we're working collectively with R&D, the mayor, and our various departments on how exactly this is going to come into the county and how we're going to be allocating it. I've heard you folks. I'm happy to bring that up, advocate to the mayor that we really need to run this through the CDP process, get the input, CDP AC process, and get the input. And everybody may not agree on everything, but we're going through those processes. So that's there. I hear you loud and clear. We don't have it quite figured out because we're still waiting for some information coming from various parties, but we are working on that. In addition to that, the mayor had texted me today. He's in a conference with a bunch of mayors. Wells Fargo said that they're going to be putting out around $500 billion in climate infrastructure over the upcoming years too. So I see this as a multitude of funds, well, for the Build Back Better program, but also through climate change and resilience. So we need to set these models up, set the processes up, so then we can take advantage of that. Again, having shovel-ready projects, we're looking at that within our general plan. So we can actually have the projects ready and shovel-ready. So as funds come forward, we're moving forward with them. But something that's really neat is the shovel-ready concept. Talking with state DOT, which is going to be a big beneficiary of these funds, they're actually saying we don't necessarily need to be shovel ready. It can be shovel worthy. That now is an element that we can actually work with and take advantage of at a higher level. I would like to say, there was a comment made about Mayor Roth's care for the CDPs. I would like to correct that. Mayor Roth cares deeply about the CDPs. He cares deeply about our community and making our community as best that it possibly can be. I want to say that any misconception around the CDPs, I would be the one and responsible to blame for that. When we first came in, I was just trying to get our bearing on things. There's a lot going on. I made some misstatements. I think that got misconstrued. So I take full responsibility for that. I think you folks can see that we're here, we're showing up, and we're doing our very best to serve you. So hopefully that misconception can go away and we can move forward collectively to serve our community. And so, yes, we're going to continue to gather input from the CDPs, and those are our large level priorities. Again, our list is long. There's so much stuff going on, but really that's where we're going for. For the sake of time and what I've talked to the team about, I'm not going to get into the Q&A because I just think it'll go down a whole different road. But direct questions that you have, email them to me. I have your letter, Ruth, right here. Can't really read it, but I have it. I'm hearing. You can contact our AC team. Bring the questions to me and we'll do our very best to answer it. I know that may frustrate you. I just want to respect everyone's time. And I think we can go down a road of Q&A for a long time. So with that, again, really appreciate everyone being here and your service, your understanding, and we'll continue to do our very best. And thank you to our AC team. I'll hand it back over to you, Keiko. Mahalo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I just want to reiterate that there will be ample opportunity to either directly contact Zendo, or there will be space on the feedback forms for questions, comments. Our team is, as Zendo said, our team is always here. And so just, let's see, very quickly, we're going to transition to our business items. We still have 3 business items left and 45 minutes. So we've been going for a little while now, and we're trying to be cognizant of the fact that folks need breaks when we're on Zoom. And so let's do a quick 3-minute break. Stretch your legs, get a snack, refill your beverage, whatever your preference, for the 3 minutes. And then we'll see everybody back here at 6:17. And then we'll start with our Administrator of Housing when we come back. Mahalo.
Aloha, everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully everybody's feeling refreshed. I know 3 minutes isn't a lot of time. You can see videos starting to pop back up. Okay, I think we're starting to get everybody. Mahalo again, Zendo. Thank you so much for being here. So next up on our agenda, we're really excited to have our housing administrator, Susan Coons, here with us. And she's going to talk about some of the current needs for affordable housing in Hawaii County, how the 201H process works to help facilitate the development of affordable housing. And this is something that our action committees are really passionate about and have asked us a lot for. So thank you so much for being here, Susan. Are you here, Susan?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was fighting with my mute button.
It happens.
So my name is Susan Coons. I'm the housing administrator for the Office of Housing. Thank you so much for having me here this evening to share with you about some of our housing needs. And yes, to talk through the 201H as a tool for developers to produce more housing. And I will spend just a little bit of time talking about maybe the roadmap going forward. So thank you for that. I'm going to share my screen and let's see if I can do this properly. Are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint.
Okay. You know, Are you seeing me shift to the different pages?
We can't see it, so it's not in presentation mode, but we can see you go through your slides.
Okay, wait, now hold on. Let me start all over.
Sometimes it helps to start your presentation first and then share to the presentation once it's up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my secret.
So if I start from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just start from the beginning and then put it up on the screen, it should be okay?
Yeah, so if you start your presentation and then come back to Zoom and share your screen and select your presentation again, and it should be in presentation mode. I hope that makes sense.
I am so sorry. Do I start up the slideshow? Is that what I'm selecting?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see if this works. I hope. Are you seeing a different screen now?
We're seeing your PowerPoint, not the presentation. It's not in presentation mode, but we can see your slides.
Okay, so can I just flip through it the way it is? Are you guys okay with this?
I think it works.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan.
I don't want to take too much time trying to mess with this. Okay, so talking about Hawaii County's housing needs. In 2019, the Office of Housing, partners with the Hawaii Housing to do the Hawaii Housing Planning Study with a consultant called SMS. And actually, this is a statewide activity. So all of the counties participate in this activity. there is a projected, based on that study, and you'll see right here, I've put in a page of that study. It's showing that the projected need for Hawaii County is 10,796 affordable housing units between the period of 2020 to 2025. So it's a 5-year period. What I do want to point out when you look at this chart, if you see Hawaii County and you look at the total column all the way to the right-hand side, you'll see a number of 13,000 there. I just want to point out, in each one of the columns that's represented in this chart represents the category of income or area median income. So this chart and the 13,000 units that it's saying that we are needing is representing income levels from below 30% of the area median income up to 180%. So, and I want to clarify that anything over 140% area median income is technically market units. But the study does show that there's a need for that as well. So, and that's why I'm pointing this out, because HUD recognizes area median income up to 140% to be affordable. And so, and the number of units there is 10,700. This slide is showing that for all, it shows the housing need for each one of the islands, actually, each one of the counties. So you can see that I've highlighted the Hawaii County number there that was recognized in the previous slide. And we are showing significantly higher than the other neighboring islands, which means Maui and Kauai. Of course, the city and county of Honolulu is going to be a higher need than ours. It's interesting to also look at this data to show that households that are at 80% of the area median income and below make up almost 70% of the total need. Interestingly, though, if you look at the total 13,000 unit need, the need for housing up to 180% is about 50%. And then 80% AMI to 180% is about the other 50%. So it's kind of interesting when you're kind of looking at this data. It's also, I also want to point out that these numbers, and this was highlighted in the study, does not include housing needed for homeless. So these are very low income families recognized in this plan, but it does not include what we need to produce for housing homeless. You know, the impacts of limited housing options, I feel like I'm not going to read through this. I put this slide in there because it's some of the information that was included in the planning study as well. But I feel like I'm preaching to the choir by saying this, why the impacts of limited housing options are so bad, right? And that we really need to produce these units. I think the thing that we all probably understand is that affordable housing development is not as profitable as market rate housing for developers, right? So the lower on the AMI level you go, the more difficult it is financially for developers to produce. Developers producing at the higher end of the area median income, the project can be a little bit more profitable because of the sales prices that they can sell or rent units to. We do work with developers by creating tools that make affordable housing projects financially feasible. It's what the Housing Office does, whether it's through our administration of federal grant programs or the administration of tools like the 201H. But the 201H application and that process is one of the more commonly used tools. So what is 201H-38? This is a state law, it's HRS. allows for OECD to facilitate developer exemptions in order to create more affordable housing projects. So, this state law is actually written for the Hawaii Housing Finance Development Corporation, but that state department has authorized all of the counties to administer the 201H in each one of our counties. The procedure that we use to process a 201H application is that the developers would hold a public meeting to discuss their project with their community. We want to make sure that the community is aware of the type of project that's coming down the pipeline and what they plan to do. The application is completed and then submitted to our office for review. We distribute the application to state and county departments for a 30-day review and comment, wanting to make sure that all of the departments, state and county-wide, are able to provide some comments and let us know their thoughts about the particular project we're working on. This application goes through the council's planning committee and then on to the county council for approval. So again, the process does provide ample opportunity for the community to provide comment, and we really encourage that. We want to hear if there are concerns, and we want to make sure that we're working with the developer to address those concerns. I wanted to point out here why a developer would want to use the 201H application. And so most commonly, they can use it to do rezoning. It can be completed without triggering planning requirements. The developer also can submit multiple exemptions at the same time to be looked at and assessed. For example, a developer may request a rezone and waiver from permitting fees and setback requirements. Those are pretty typical types of requests that we see. The 201H process, in the 201H process, fair share contributions don't apply. And requests are expedited because the process requires that once the agenda or the application is submitted to council, the council has 45 days to review and approve or deny the application. Otherwise, it's deemed approved on the 46th day. So those who are eligible for these exemptions are any private and nonprofit developer. Either one can apply. And I just want to make sure we're clear that there are no health and safety standard or codes or laws that affect health and safety standards that are going to be considered in the 201H. The other main criteria is that applicants or the projects have to have or be obligated to create 50% plus one of the total development has to be affordable. So to give you some examples of 201H projects that we've processed or are currently working on, Honuaula Living Community, which is a project that is 100% affordable. There is a project in Hilo, Hale Ola o Mohu'uli, that is also a 100% affordable project. And we just in December received an application for the Waikaloa Village Center. And that also looks like it will be a 100% affordable project. Digging in a little bit, I've provided some slides here that talk a little bit about each one of the developments. So this particular 201H was requesting a change of zoning and waiver for permitting fees. And it was approved by the county council in September. And you can see here that there are 112 affordable units at 60% of the area median income. And this is in West Hawaii. This particular 201H, we're currently processing. I believe it's scheduled for committee meeting in February. This is going to be a newer type of design. It's called a pocket neighborhood. So it's single level. It is going to be a mix of multifamily and elderly units. So that's going to be a new type of development that we haven't seen yet, but a total of 90 units at 60% area median income. So this one is kind of moving through the pipeline right now. And the third one that I had mentioned, the Waikaloa Village Center, we just received this application. So the staff's currently going through the details of the project. They're identifying themselves as self-subsidizing, meaning that they're looking to produce 200 affordable units, and they're also mixing in some commercial and light industrial space. And I think the self-subsidizing means that they are not looking to seek out federal or state funding, but the income from the commercial and light industrial space may help to subsidize what they're doing in the affordable units. The income levels, I think, are still being evaluated, so I don't have those numbers at this time. So just a little quick overview of what the strategic roadmap to increase affordable housing will start to look like coming out of this office. We're currently working on this. So this is just a kind of a preview, but a lot of work we've been doing has to do with regulatory reform, which includes a comprehensive review of the inclusionary zoning policy or code, which is our Chapter 11. We have engaged a consultant to do this review for us, and we're hoping to see a completed document by this summer. You know, this process will include public hearings and public input. So, you know, I'd like to share that with you, and I'm hoping maybe I might be able to circle back with this group at some point to get some input once some of the draft document is starting to flesh out. You know, we are also working and have been in communications. I know Zendo mentioned kind of a comprehensive revision of their chapters 25 and chapter 23. So we're definitely looking forward to coordinating on that as well, because I think that will provide a lot of support to affordable housing development. Another thing that we've been working on is really trying to develop a program to develop more affordable housing by identifying county and state lands. We've done quite a bit of this already. My thought would be here that if we could identify lands that have easy access to infrastructure, meaning wastewater and potable water, and even help to make sure the zoning is in line with the type of development we would like to see there. I think that, you know, the county or the housing office, by doing some of these things in advance, could really help streamline the process for the developers. And once we have this in place, we might RFP, you know, the property out to select the developer to do the work, producing the housing. So we're kind of excited about that. And also, you know, the Office of Housing being involved, you know, I wanna say that we are not a developer, and I'm not professing to be a developer, but there are certain projects that we have gotten involved with. And so I think to a certain level, the housing office will continue to work on a portfolio, either acquiring or working on existing facilities to do affordable housing units, and then maybe contracting with a property management company to handle the management of the property for us. And then, of course, I think, after hearing from a lot of the developers, trying to establish some type of housing fund. We've been looking into this, and then seeking other sources of funding to promote affordable housing development is something that we're really trying to focus on as well. And that's it for my presentation. I would love to hear if you have any questions for me.
Thank you so much, Susan. We do have quite a few questions that are coming through the chat here. And unfortunately, we won't have time to answer all of these questions. I just wanted to reassure everybody that we are taking note of all the questions that are coming in. We have a feedback form at the end of the meeting for you to submit other questions if they come up, and we'll be following up with everybody. I think so in trying to understand, I've been reading through these questions and trying to get the general theme of what is starting to happen in the conversation here. And forgive me if I'm getting the question wrong, but it seems to me like there's an overwhelming question on what are the qualifications for a 201H application?
Okay, so the developer we do have an application form that I would be willing to share. It is a public document, but the application would be filled out by a developer who could be a private developer or a nonprofit. Either one could apply. The key is that the project has to be 50% plus one affordable in order to qualify for any of these exemptions. Let me go back to that particular. Does that sound pretty clear?
Well, I don't want to speak for the folks that asked the question. I'm not seeing any comments coming back up in the chat.
Okay. And I mean, I have my contact information on the last slide, so please, feel free to reach out. If there's a particular project that you'd like to talk about, we could definitely zoom in on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time, and I know evenings are sacred time to be free and do your own thing. So we do really appreciate you being here. So.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan. I was just going to ask if it would be possible for us to get a copy of the PowerPoint to share out with AC members.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Awesome. Thank you guys for hanging in. And so up next, we have Executive Director Christine Kubat from Recycle Hawaii, who will share some background on the nonprofit organization's mission to reduce solid waste by providing educational services and other resources to promote recycling efforts. And I think this is something that all of our ACs have talked about numerous times. And so we're happy to have you with us, Christine. Thank you.
Aloha. So I am going to actually get into a little bit of detail about some of the work that we've been doing. I apologize for any inelegance in how I share, but here we go. Okay. Our organization just completed an update to the Hawaii County Zero Waste Plan. I don't know how many of you involved in these activities understand this, but Hawaii County already has a zero waste plan. You already have a policy that's been adopted and approved by the county council. The first version was many years ago, but there's still an artifact to prove this, and that is the Department of Environmental Management. Their website is actually hawaiizerowaste.org. So there you go. I'm just going to skip through a little bit some of these slides to give you an idea of what's encompassed in this plan. We worked with the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. We're looking to roll this out relatively soon. And I'm understanding now that I see this group and what you do, that it would be a really good first step for us to present this to this group. What's been lacking is, even though Hawaii County did have a zero waste plan in the past, there was no real action taken on that. So here we are with the action people. Let's make this happen. It's based on this idea that our island is unique. Here's some of the ways that we are unique. And one of the things I really would like to emphasize in all of this, if you're not sure what zero waste is, here's the definition. I'll just take a minute to read this because it's very important. And that is the conservation of all resources by means of responsible production, consumption, reuse, and recovery of products, packaging, and materials without burning and with no discharges to land, water, or air that threaten the environment or human health. So we see Hawaii County did adopt language like that. We went in and we looked at all of the components of the waste stream, and we have definitely gone through. I'll just back up there to show you some of the partnerships. The global commitment for a new plastics economy. If there's anyone out there really concerned about plastic pollution, there is hope. The Basel Convention, Center for International Environmental Law. These are some of the policy heavyweights that we've been borrowing from and working with. Let's kind of do this quickly. But just to show you an example of how this plan is going to matter, and that is, there's been a recent discussion about the plan at one point to have a single large-scale composting facility on island. And as a result of the work that we did, we were able to hire a consultant who came back and told us, no, actually, it would be better, cheaper, and better suited to the community if you had a system of small-scale distributed composting facilities. And so we have been able to testify at the county council. We've got an estimate that was developed by a professional. So this is the kind of work that we're doing. And I'm just going to stop here for a minute and comment on what Corey Harden brought up. I was feeling very encouraged when I was getting to understand what this group does. And when I heard this idea possibly that it's going to get dismantled and this effort would somehow focus on materials or sectors. And I'm here to say, please don't do that. Because one of the most exciting things for me, the work that I'm doing, is now that we're finally getting to the community level when we're talking about waste management. We're not talking about a single composting facility. We're not talking about an incinerator. We're talking about communities. What kind of resources are they throwing away? How could they make better use of those resources? All of that needs to happen at the community level. These are community plans. They need to be tied to the communities. And if you back up and say, oh, we're going to have a plan for waste or a plan for housing or whatever, it's going to get lost and it's going to throw us back. So please don't do that. Okay, so here's some more things here. I mean, you just kind of get to see this sample that you see on the right, that cardboard that's shredded, that's coming out of a community group. This is a total community initiative. People are collecting cardboard rather than shipping it all the way across the ocean to get recycled. They're using it here, and they're using it for mulch. They're using it to replace plastic weed mat. If you put 2 passes through the machine, you have materials that you can use for permaculture. So communities are already coming up with really creative ways of using these materials. We want to encourage that. And this plan lays out how to do it. Here's things that we could make from waste paper. That waste paper could be a facility that creates these kind of products, again, to displace plastic that's being used and degrading into microplastics in our environment, could be co-located with a new wastewater treatment plant. We say wastewater. Well, there's so much water, being channeled into these wastewater facilities. Hey, how about if we take advantage of that, get some waste paper, look at the kinds of things we could do. And again, all at the community level. So construction and demolition is another huge issue. We should not be tearing things apart and throwing these materials into the landfill. We should be taking them apart and using them, deconstruction, community-based, all of this. Okay, I'll stop here for a minute, just to kind of tug at everyone's heartstrings and remind everybody how problematic plastic is and what we owe to these beautiful creatures that we share the planet with, to respect them and to stop doing the kinds of things that we're doing to them with our wastefulness. The reason that this is really important is people are coming up with these ideas of, oh, we're going to take the waste plastic and we're going to turn it into things that are useful. And what is one of the useful things that people want to do with plastic? Well, let's make some roads. Oh my God, please no. Every time a car drives over that road, it's wearing away at the plastic material. It's going into the environment. We find nanoplastic particles in the column above the Swiss Alps at nearly the same concentration as downtown Detroit, which means that these particles are airborne. We do not want to take plastic and put it back into the environment. We're not doing any good by collecting waste plastic. Here you have a jug, it's in your hand, you can put it someplace safe. If you take that and grind it up and make pavers or road or something, now it's going to degrade into microplastics. You'll never get your hands on it again. So Recycle Hawaii, we are adamant against plastic reformation schemes. Okay, there it is, on and on. So basically what I'm trying to do is get you super stoked on this zero waste plan. You can't wait to see it. You can't wait to get your hands on it and read it and find out all the great things that you're going to learn. And then here we go to the very end, to something that I think is going to be of particular interest to this group. And actually, it might be better if I show that a different way. So this is a series of slides, which I think are very interesting. And here we go. Here's our island. So now let's look at these arrows, the red arrows.
I'm so sorry, Christine. I think if you expand your screen, we're only seeing the very top of your.
This part? I just want you to see this. Do you see the island?
No, we're seeing only like the top quarter of your window. I see your mouse.
You see my mouse? Do you see this island, the big island?
No.
Okay.
Pull it up.
Oh, here. How's that? Is that good?
No, still the same. Maybe if you drag the window up.
Did you see the rest of it? Did you see all of this?
Yes, that we all saw. It was just when you switched.
Okay, well, I'll try to find it here because I think this is going to be the part. Yeah, but I don't have all of them.
There we go.
Okay. Well, oh, how about this? Okay, I think this is what I'm going to do. Okay, how about this now?
Better.
Is that it?
Yes, we see text and then the map with the transfer stations.
Yes.
The island, yes.
Okay, great. Do you see this map?
No, we're just seeing the that same page. There's like 2 columns of text, and then in the bottom right, there's the island with the transfer stations identified.
Do you see a map of the Big Island? It has all the transfer stations and it has little arrows.
Not arrows. We see the transfer stations identified by bullets, like little circles.
And do you see some text next to it? God, this must be so annoying for people.
Yeah. No, take
We're
your
looking
time.
at page 45 of your slide presentation.
Well, I tried to make that go away. Okay. Well, sorry for that epic fail. But there's a map that I really wanted to show you. And I thought I closed this down. Okay, well, here's the thing. I can see it. So I'm just gonna talk about it. All right, I'm gonna tell you what I see. So here we go. I'm looking at a map of the materials on the island, and it's got arrows on it. And there is a whole lot of stuff that is getting generated in East Hawaii, and it's getting trucked to West Hawaii to the landfill there. Okay, so now if we start to look at all the different communities, we have on the Big Island 13 transfer stations that receive less than 10 tons of materials per day. If you talk to people who are involved in waste management and other places, they go, less than 10 tons a day, oh my gosh, they can't even believe that. That's such a small amount. Well, guess what? We've got 12 stations that receive less than 6 tons per day. 10 that receive less than 4 tons. We can go all the way down. We on our island have 3 transfer stations that receive less than 2.5 tons per day. This is not to say that they're open every day, but if you average the amount of materials they bring in on the days that they are open, you're looking at communities, it's Miloli'i, it's Kalapana, it's Pauilo, where they are bringing in such a small amount of materials that it's entirely conceivable that those communities could just take those materials, make use of them, collect all the cardboard, collect the box board, feed the worms, just really make use of those materials. So this is the thing that I'm most excited to talk about these planning groups, these action groups about Recycle Hawaii. We would love to come to the individual groups, to sit down with you, to talk about the materials that are circulating within your community and what could be done. Let's get creative. You're going to start to hear a lot of talk about waste, a MRF, a material recovery facility, pay as you throw, chemical recycling, all of these ideas that are just so old school. Maybe if we had tried them 40 years ago, they would make sense. But now, given all the support we have for true sustainability, we really need to start to get creative. So I would like to especially thank Rebecca Villegas, Councilperson Villegas, Recycle Hawaii. She used some of her contingency funds and we were able to go and do a deep dive in her district. We were able to really look at the materials, what were the different resources, how could they be used. We would love to do that for each and every community and come up with creative ideas. Another thing that we're doing is looking at KA, which is one of those transfer stations that brings in a very small amount of materials. And we're thinking, how can we turn this into a resource recovery park? How could we have a place where families could come on the weekend and they could bring their cardboard and have it shredded and take it home and put it on their gardens, where they could bring in bottles that they knew were going to get washed. You know, just really treating these materials with the respect that they deserve and doing this at the community scale. So I think that's probably enough of me talking because you've had a lot of words to digest this evening. But I think the main thing that I would like to leave you with is this invitation for any of your planning groups to reach out to our organization. You can see the work that we are doing. And we would be happy to sit down with you and come up with a community-based plan for resource management. Let's get rid of that word waste. Waste is a verb. everybody's talking about circularity. 9 times out of 10, where the circle breaks down, it's going to be a trash can, a dumpster, a landfill. So that's where, if we want to be circular, that's where we really want to focus our attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. Appreciate you hanging in there and waiting with us so we got to this point. But I can tell in the comments that everybody was really excited about this. And so we are definitely going to take you up on your offer to meet individually with action committees, because I think it could be really valuable work and a great connection. So glad that we were able to connect in this way.
Yeah, when it's time for us to roll out our zero waste plan, we would hope to get support from the community groups to say this is the future of waste management. That's what they'd like to see. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And if it's possible, maybe you could share the map with us, and then we can share it out to folks. Yeah, then that way we can share it out to folks post meeting.
Yes, we will.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds great.
Aloha.
Aloha. So we do have one more business item. We realize that it's 6:59 and there's no way that we can get through this item in 1 minute. So I'm not sure if we can even do a quick poll, but I think that Heather can get through this presentation in 5 minutes. Is that fair, Heather? If you talk really fast?
Try.
Seven
Do my
minutes?
best.
So we'll turn the floor over to Heather. And if you have to step away, please. This will always be available for viewing on YouTube, and we can connect at any point with you guys.
Okay, sorry, just sharing my screen. Getting myself situated here. Yeah, I just want to echo what Keiko said. We know it's late. Everyone's been sitting on Zoom for a long time. We really, really appreciate you all being here. I've been popping into YouTube every so often to see what's going on over there. It's just wonderful to see so many people interested in the work that we're doing, and just thank you so much for hanging in there in this long meeting. We know you folks have busy lives, and we just want you to really know that we're available to talk in between meetings too and answer questions. So if there's any way we can accommodate that after this meeting is over, we would be more than happy to do that. We'll also be discussing everything in this presentation in much more detail at the individual action committee meetings. This is basically a presentation to show that we are, to basically start to put together the framework for that discussion. So first off, just wanted to share, back at the end of 2021, we invited action committee members to have one-on-one meetings with us and encourage them to share their candid thoughts and feedback. We wanted to briefly share back the kind of an overview of some of that feedback that we received. And if you missed a chance to talk to us when we were doing these one-on-one meetings last year, it's never too late to reach out to us. We are always here. We're a phone call away. Always more than happy to talk to you folks. We hope that instead of formally scheduling one-on-one meetings like we did before, that this style of communication and an open door policy and just being open and ready to talk to you folks at any time becomes a more natural way for us to communicate. So anyway, just really trying to break those barriers down if we can. Okay, so some of the feedback that we received. Folks wanted a better explanation of action committees and their role in larger county processes, the long-range division included, and what us planners do. We talked a lot about imagining a more impactful role for action committees in the future and how we can frame that. We talked about empowering action committee members to take their work to the community, and that takes a couple different forms. One idea was pop-up talk story sessions in different areas of the community facilitated by action committee members. Member-hosted unofficial Zoom meeting sites. We're looking into ways to have you folks have the ability to invite people into your home to have your own unofficial kind of meeting location for our Zoom meetings and self-hosted action committee meetings between the quarterly meetings. These would be subject to sunshine law, but if action committee members are interested in kind of taking the reins, we are more than happy to provide the capacity building and the training to help you folks be able to run your own meetings if that is something that is interesting to you. I heard a lot about focusing on affordable housing, finding ways for action committee members to interact casually. This was a lot easier when we had in-person meetings. A lot of talk about making our meetings friendlier. Having open testimony listening sessions in our meetings is something that we've done one time before with the Kona Action Committee. We want to give opportunities for more conversational testimony. Even the word testimony is something we were talking earlier. We prefer to say public comment. We're really trying hard to make our meetings feel friendly and make people feel like they're welcome. We heard a lot from action committee members that we don't want to lose focus on district level initiatives at joint meetings or in our processes overall. We want to broaden our reach into the community, encourage action committee members to serve on at least one subcommittee, different priorities for different sub-district areas. In South Kohala, as an example, this would be talking about Waikaloa and Waimea and Kauai, and how each of these areas within the districts have their own distinct personality and flavor and issues and things going on. We just don't want to lose that in our district-wide conversations. Provide in-person meetings was something that we heard from folks. Provide action committee members with more leadership opportunities was another thing that we heard, and that more frequent meetings are necessary. Sorry, I'm really trying hard to get through this quickly. All that being said, we thought it would be cool to take a step back here and just recognize our Island-wide Community Development Plan Action Committee program. As staff, and just speaking for our team here, we're more ambitious with our goals than we have the capacity to provide a lot of the time. We find ourselves, and I mean quite openly and honestly, we find ourselves in a balancing act between bringing our enthusiasm to you folks and wanting to reach for the moon with our projects, while also not wanting to overpromise on actions or outcomes that we don't have control over. We often find ourselves similarly frustrated when things don't go to plan. And especially in moments when, like I'm doing now, speaking out in a public setting, and through our work to establish trust with our community partners, we don't want to let you guys down by overpromising. So I often tell folks that while things may not always appear to be moving from the outside, they are moving for us, and sometimes the tasks for us on the inside feel like moving mountains. And speaking of moving mountains, I'm really excited to share with you folks the work that we've been doing this past year and kind of our 2022 aspirations with our action committees. To start off, the Puna CDP Action Committee recently gained 2 new members, which has brought their committee up to quorum. These AC members have been working diligently in tandem with the recovery efforts in Puna. Yeah, talking again about moving mountains, and we're absolutely in awe of what these guys have been doing, and we look forward to working with them more in tandem with those efforts. We heard a bit about this earlier in our testimony about the North Kohala Community Development Plan Action Committee. For years, there's been a struggle for us collectively to make membership required for keeping quorum requirements in their meetings. Is often left to meetings being shut down because they didn't have enough members attending. And the issue kind of transgressed further into a struggle on our behalf for bringing in new applicants to form a formal action committee for those folks. I just wanted to share that we've been working very hard to try to heal this mistrust with the North Kohala community. And we also wanted to note that they have not sat stagnant in the time that they haven't had formal action committee meetings. We met and had a talk story with John Winter and Tony Bithington to North Kohala community organizers, and just had an open discussion to strategize on how to move forward. And they promptly brought out pamphlets, a copy of the Kohala Mountain News, and outlining the work that their community groups have been doing over there, including a massive effort to preserve. They've preserved miles of coastline along the North Kohala coast, and we're also completely in awe of the work that these folks have been doing. They're working currently to organize their own community group to serve a similar function to regular action committees. We're looking forward to hosting quarterly meetings in their community and kind of treating them in a similar way as action committees while we just work to build that trust in the time being. And this is all until their community is willing and able to seat a formal action committee in the future. So this is just our way of trying to bridge these gaps and heal issues that have occurred in the past. I'm also really excited to share with you guys that we've officially brought in enough timely applicants to move forward with the selection process of the KAU CDP Action Committee. This work is being done in tandem with the mayor's office, who moves applications forward, and county council, who works to confirm them to be officially on the action committee. Just excited to share that we hope to be able to start the onboarding process for these folks soon. Shooting for the end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter of 2022. And we will definitely continue to keep you guys updated in all of these developments. Okay, briefly, and I'm sorry, I know we're going over time. So we've also wanted to share like a overarching outline for 2022 and different discussion items that we wanted to bring forward to you folks. These are suggestions to be done alongside the priorities that individual action committees want to focus on. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that we're bringing these suggestions to you, not to frame the discussions that are to happen this year, but as our contribution to the conversations that will be happening this year. So our first two items, in March, we're hoping to host elections for action committee officers, chairs, and vice chairs. We also hope to bring to you folks the first draft of the island-wide capital improvement projects budget. We will also be focusing on action committee priorities and discussing a road mapping conversation and strategizing on the items that came out of our one-on-one meetings with you folks. So we're really looking forward to digging more into those and really focusing and working collaboratively to find ways to implement your suggestions to the extent that your committees are willing to take up the suggestions that have been brought forward. Also, this year, we're looking forward to bringing a conversation about Chapter 16 of the Hawaii County Code, which is the section that outlines and defines action committees. Attached to that project is bringing back the old action committee operating guidelines. Currently, the ones we have are ancient and were agreed upon by the founding members of the first ACs. We figure it would be an important part of the conversation on Chapter 16 to also look at those operating guidelines at the same time. We are also aware of the need for in-person or hybrid meetings to broaden our ability to outreach into the public. And dependent on the governor's emergency proclamation and changing rules around COVID, we're looking forward to hosting or exploring hosting these hybrid meetings later this year. And so that's basically the meat of everything that I had to share with you folks tonight. The March meetings, just a quick reminder that we've rescheduled the March meetings from February to March. And I have the different meeting dates for the action committees displayed on the screen. The Puna Action Committee, March 3rd, Kona, March 10th, South Kohala, March 14th, and Hamakua, March 15th. So be sure to mark your calendars for that. And all of that being said, mahalo from the CDP team. Thank you so much for being here. I believe we're at the end of our meeting, that we don't have anything else on our agenda. So we just really appreciate you folks and thank you for being here.
Yep, I'll just very quickly second that. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo for continuing to give so much to our communities. The link to the feedback form has been dropped into the chat and we will follow up with an email to you folks that includes that link. You guys are unreal awesome. And we are officially adjourned at 7:13. So go enjoy the rest of your evening. Mahalo.
Thank you so much. Crystal, I can see that you have your hand raised. Was there something quick that you wanted to ask?
You did, but that's fine if we're done. I'll email. I guess that's part of what I was trying to get at, right? Tonight, it was all about you guys telling us information without us being able to have kind of a back and forth kind of thing, but I'll email you on that, so.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, feel free to email us anytime. Thank you.